In our last video, the Enclave destroyed Liberty Prime. Somehow they called in a missile strike and destroyed the robot while it was attacking one of their satellite arrays. This completely confounded the Brotherhood. We managed to infiltrate the satellite array and download a bunch of data from their mainframe. We gave the data to Scribe Rothschild in hopes that he can figure out exactly what happened. But in the meantime, Paladin Tristan has another task for us.
Nice work back there. Let's hope the scribes can do something useful with the information you retrieved. Unfortunately, we don't have time to sit around and wait for the analysis. Based on what I've seen of you so far, there's an assignment I believe you're well suited for.
Do I get paid for it?
Paid? No, perhaps there's been some misunderstanding about how all this works. You are not a mercenary. You are serving the Brotherhood of Steel to ensure our way of life, to help advance the lives of everyone in the Wasteland. Our continued survival should be payment enough. If that is insufficient, you would do well to reconsider your involvement here.
I don't get paid? At all? This gig sucks.
I cannot imagine how you've come this far being under such a delusion. I need someone I can count on. If you're not that person, turn around and walk away, now. If you are, I need you to stop stalling and immediately head for the Olney Powerworks in Old Olney, north of the city.
Sorry, it was just a joke.
I see. You'll forgive my lack of humor, given that we face annihilation on a daily basis.
You don't have much of a sense of humor, do ya?
I have yet to find a sense of humor to be essential to my survival. Should that change, I'll be sure to seek you out for advice. In the meantime, I need someone willing to scout out and potentially retrieve valuable technology from the ruins of Old Olney. We're looking for something that I believe can be found in the Olney Powerworks. Are you up to it?
Any job you've got, I can do.
I hope that's true. With all of the Brotherhood's resources committed to protecting against an Enclave attack, we're spread thin. So thin that we can't spare anyone to research a new weapon that might help us against the Enclave's vertibirds. At least, until now. From information we've gathered, it seems what we need may be located in the Olney Powerworks north of that city.
I'm ready for more. What do you need?
With the setbacks the Brotherhood has suffered, we find ourselves in a difficult position. All our available resources need to be positioned for the inevitable counterattack from the Enclave. At the same time, we believe we may have developed a tool to help our chances of victory. But with everyone needed to help defend against the Enclave, we have no one to send on a recovery mission. So, I'm going to have you travel to the Olney Powerworks to secure some tech for us.
Olney? No, I don't think so.
I'm sorry. Perhaps there was a misunderstanding. I'm not asking you to go. I am, as your superior officer, ordering you to go. This is your assignment. You are to proceed to the Olney Powerworks. Once there, you are to locate and acquire a Tesla coil and return to the Citadel with it. Now get moving.
You want me to go all the way to Olney?
I need you to go there, and quickly. That's the best chance to locate a key piece of experimental equipment called a Tesla coil. Information we've gathered suggests it's the best place to look for one, and for what the scribes are cooking up, it's absolutely essential. If you can find one, get it back here right away. We don't have much time.
Olney Powerworks? What's there?
Hopefully you'll be able to find a Tesla coil, an experimental device from before the war. Our scribes needed to complete a little surprise they've been preparing for the Enclave. Get there, get the coil, and get back as safely and quickly as possible. Any questions?
Old Olney is a dangerous place. Is there anything I could have to help me?
Check with Scribe Vallencourt. She's been researching some of the Enclave technology we've recovered. From what I understand, she may have come up with something.
I have to go now.
I'll be waiting for that Tesla coil, if you can find one.
So, looks like there was something at Old Olney that we missed when we were there last. Maybe Scribe Vallencourt will have something useful for us. Heading down to the lab, we can check in with Scribe Vallencourt.
I'm still very, very busy. Is this important, or can it wait?
I hear you can help me get into Old Olney.
Well, maybe. Possibly. I think so, but I'm not certain. I don't know how much this will actually help. I mean, I'm not quite sure how effective it might be, since it hasn't really been field tested. But I think I've figured out a way to override the signals the Enclave is using to control their death claws. Here, take this. It's only a prototype, so please don't lose it.
With that, she hands us the Deathclaw Control Scrambler. What exactly is this thing?
It's a semi-standard transmitter, only I altered the frequency modulation and jacked up the output. Based on some experiments I ran here in the lab, it should override the signals the Enclave uses to control death claws. Don't worry, it's constantly broadcasting, so you don't need to do anything. Just don't lose it. And so far, I have no evidence of adverse effects of EM interference in humans. Animals maybe, but not humans. Anyway, it doesn't have a huge broadcast range, but it should be enough.
How does the Scrambler work?
It overrides the Enclave signal, so as far as the Deathclaw is concerned, you're in control. And remember, it works passively. As long as you have the Scrambler on your person, it'll do its job.
Is there anything I need to be concerned about?
No, I don't think so. As long as you're within range of the Enclave's transmitter, your signal should be the one the Deathclaw follows. If you get too far away, well, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I think there might be some bad effects. Oh, for the Deathclaw, not you.
Okay, that's it.
All right then. There have been reports of an Enclave camp southeast of Old Olney, so I'd head there if you want to try it out. I hope the Scrambler ends up being useful. I'd hate to have spent all this time on it and get no results, or bad results. That would be worse.
I have to go now.
Good luck, and please be careful.
So an Enclave camp southeast of Old Olney. If we come from the direction of Chased Acre Dairy Farm, we see an Enclave Deathclaw pin on the other side of a road, and it's guarded by the Enclave. But wait, I don't need to waste ammunition on these guys. I have the Deathclaw Control Scrambler. Heading down to the pens, we see that one is empty, and the other one is locked with an average lock. After picking it, the Deathclaw emerges and immediately begins attacking the Enclave. If we can't pick the cage, we do find a key on the Enclave officer's body. We could always kill him for it or pickpocket him. But he doesn't last very long. The Enclave soldiers are leveled to the player character, so at level 30, these Enclave soldiers are pretty beefy, and their weapons deal a lot of damage. So, while a nice idea and potentially fun, this Deathclaw Scrambler thing is pretty useless. Also, remember when Vallencourt told us that bad things might happen if the Deathclaw gets out of range? Well, if the Deathclaw survived the battle with the Enclave, as we start walking towards Olney, we hear beeps, and he dies. But as you saw, he wasn't that far away from me. So for this and a number of other reasons, the Deathclaw is just an ineffective ally. We find a table nearby covered in Enclave technology. We can walk away with a plasma mine, some energy cells. We find some ammo crates on the ground near to a satellite dish, and we find an average locked Enclave field research terminal on the table. But what's weird about this is the terminal is smaller than usual. It's been shrunken down to the size of a plasma pistol. Interesting. Field Operations Enclave, God bless America. In the first one, officers report, our detachment established base camp outside Olney. The township's been given a wide berth, and we deployed our detainment units behind a slope to avoid being caught upwind of the Deathclaw population. We are not sure if these things use pheromones or any other kind of communication, but I'm not taking a chance. In the second one, official orders, double our DHA 23P welcome. 1. Establish a perimeter around township of Olney. 2. Verify reports of Deathclaw population in township and debrief superiors on your findings. 3. Acquire Deathclaw specimens as opportunity allows, minimizing casualties to local Deathclaw population and Enclave personnel. So Old Olney is infested with Deathclaws, and the Enclave wanted to use it as a source for their battle Deathclaws. After looting a number of Enclave crates we find littering the ground at this station, we can head towards Old Olney. Now, we investigated and cleared Old Olney in a previous video that you can watch here. In that video, we found a suit of talking power armor and a tipped-over delivery truck filled with Nuka-Cola Quantum. But there was one section of the underground Old Olney sewer system that we couldn't access at that time. So, heading to the Old Olney sewers and killing any remaining Deathclaw that we find, we can navigate through the familiar corridors until we find a ladder deep within the labyrinth that leads up to Old Olney underground.
What the? How the hell did you get in here, Smooth Skin?
Who are you? What are you doing in here?
Hey, I'm Win. This is Kid. We're, well, it's kind of a long story. Only thing that matters now is that we're trying to steer clear of the Deathclaws on account of not wanting to be lunch meat.
Oh, great. Ghouls. I hate ghouls.
Yeah, nice to see you too. Listen, I'd love to chat, but I'm kind of trying to avoid getting killed. This place is crawling with Deathclaws and they're always hungry. You'd do best to turn around and head back.
I'm only looking for Olney Powerworks. You know where that is?
Oh, yeah, sure thing. Just right through here. Only there's a few Deathclaws down here that might have other ideas. You know what I'm saying?
If there are so many Deathclaws down here, how'd you survive?
We ran faster than the others, that's how. Ain't nothing honorable about it, but we're still alive, and they ain't. I can live with that. Listen, this wasn't my fault, okay? It wasn't my idea to tunnel down here. I just went along with it. But whatever. What's done is done. Me and Kid, we're getting out of here. You came in that way, that means we can get back out. See you later, Kid.
I'm not afraid of Deathclaws.
Yeah? Well, then you're stupid. Where do you think they're all coming from, huh? Goddamn nest down here. Take it from me, Kid. You stay down here, you're gonna die. But hey, it's your funeral, right? Me and Kid, we're getting out of here. Figure the way you came's gotta be pretty clear if you're still alive.
You're never gonna make it.
Yeah, well, we're not gonna get a better chance than this, so we're gonna take it. Me and Kid are getting the hell out of here. If you're not coming, then good luck to you.
Why are you down here?
Look, this wasn't how it was supposed to go down. It was a good idea at the time, you know? Figured we'd try and set ourselves up down here. Just like Underworld, only better. Who's gonna bother a bunch of ghouls living underneath Old Olney, right? So, we get down here, we start knocking some walls down, and the next thing you know, we're getting our faces chewed off by Deathclaws.
You're going to help me, or I'm going to kill you.
What? You serious? Okay, you know what? Fine, go ahead. Way things have been working out, if you don't kill me, they will. But I'm getting out of this place. If that means you're gonna do me in, be my guest.
But Wint and Kid don't have anything of interest on their inventory. So instead we can ask politely, can you help me get to Olney Powerworks?
Help you? You kidding me, Kid? We couldn't even help ourselves. Been stuck here for who knows how long. But hey, you got here in one piece, right? So now's our chance to get the hell out of here. You got any brains, you turn right around and go back the way you came. Otherwise, best of luck to you. I just want to get out of here. You feel like chatting, you talk to Wint. I'm not even supposed to be here. Just talk to Wint. Hey, talk to Wint, okay? I'm just following his lead.
So Wint and Kid have been stuck here after trying to build a second underworld inside the Olney Powerworks. But he mentioned something about there being others. Others that were slower than they were. I wonder if we'll find them. Heading out a doorway to the south puts us at the bottom of a large square room. Turning left, we find a makeshift bathroom. Here we find a gnome in the bath, watching TV, enjoying some bubblegum and jet. He's also got a little toy boat and a ball. Aww. And there's some dirty water in the toilet. Moving out to the other privacy area, we see that this was a makeshift bedroom. There's a bottle of Nuka-Cola in a bin on the ground. Heading out, we see a campfire to the southeast. We find vodka and wine in a crate, some iguana bits on a stick roasting over the fire. Then we find a makeshift kitchen to the southwest. Here we find another Nuka-Cola some sugar bombs that we can turn into Murphy, a fridge filled with boxed goods, a Vault-Tec lunchbox on a table, and a Vault-Tec lunchbox on top of a shelf. When done exploring their living area, we can leave via a doorway to the south. This leads to a staircase, which winds around, leading to the level above the big square room. And here we find our first casualty, the body of Badger, lying on a billiard table. If Badger lies here dead, the Deathclaws must be close. Then, turning west, we see fires still raging, and the body of Conley. Moving west through a doorway, we find more bodies down a hallway to the south. At the end of the hallway, we find Dunbar, and on his corpse, Dunbar's note. If you're reading this, it's because you might be able to help. We're thinking about branching out. Underworld was a good start, but we found an even safer place for us to set up a new place to call home, Old Olney. No one ever goes there. No one would ever think to look for us there. There's tons of space under the town, so we're looking for a few strong backs to help knock down some walls, clear some space underground, and help get things up and running. S. We find the corpse of Dunbar reaching out to the hand attached to the corpse of Carl. So some ghoul named S came up with the bright idea of turning Old Olney into a second underworld. And we learn how it became infested by Deathclaws. They managed to knock down a wall, which opened out into a Deathclaw den. And it must have been a huge underground Deathclaw den for this many Deathclaws to have infiltrated the town. Heading west downstairs, we arrive back at the sewer. There's a first aid kit by a mattress to the left, but both the right and left paths in this sewer are blocked off. To continue forward, we have to pass through a hole in the wall to the west. This must be the wall that the ghouls knocked down while trying to build their city. Oh! The Deathclaw are still feasting. We see a body slide down this ramp, creeping forward. It's the body of Sanders, S, the guy who came up with the idea to turn this into a ghoul city. Ah! Deathclaw!
So alive!
Sorry, Fox. Just, don't get in the way next time. One Deathclaw down. How many more to go? Crawling up the earthen ramp, we arrive in the ruins of a large building. If we turn around, we find a secret room to the south. Inside, we find a number of children's toys, an intact garden gnome standing by some balls, a bunch of cars and harmonicas, a teddy bear, and then another teddy bear by a big basketball. We can save these for little Marie. This must have been a child's playroom. Or a nursery. There's a Giddy-Up Buttercup poster on the wall. Then, we see another gnome on a northeastern ledge. Hopping over there, we find a crate of flamer fuel on a shelf above it, and then next to it, a grenade and 2 electron charge packs. Peering up, we see a skeleton hanging down from the room above. To move forward, we head west. This must have been a makeshift post-war surgery. We find a stretcher, some oxygen tanks, and some surgical tubing. We see a room to the south with a privacy screen. There's some psycho on a table. We find more push carts, oxygen tanks, and lab equipment in this room. We see through a broken hole in the wall to the south that the building is pretty sprawling. And there's a huge hole in the floor. But we'll finish exploring this section to the northeast. Here we find a couple of skeletons lying out on these operating tables. There's a small room to the east. We see a staircase going down. That's probably where we're going to have to go. So we'll be back to explore that in a minute. After looting some jet on a table, we can loot some mentats and buff out on a pushcart. We'll explore down this hole in a minute. Hopping over it for now, we can move south to finish exploring this upper level. We see a door to the west, which leads to another section, but we'll finish exploring this kitchen first. We find boxed foods in one of the fridges and some bottle caps in an office desk. That appears to be it for the surgery and the kitchen, so heading back to the northeast, we can go down that staircase we found to first explore this bottom level before we move on to the other room we found upstairs. At the bottom of the staircase, we find a Nuka-Cola machine with some Nuka-Cola inside. Then, going through a doorway to the south, we arrive at the room that the top room is crumbling into. And it's another lab, but this one filled with munitions. We find 2 ammo boxes on the ground, one of which is locked with an average which luck, and a bunch of frag mines. Perhaps this was a military hospital, or perhaps survivors from the war used it to treat the wounded and dying after the bombs dropped. Though something catastrophic happened while these poor people were being treated, for the floor above to have crumbled down on top of them. There's a closet to the south. Inside we find a first aid kit on the ground, surrounded by a couple of stim packs. There's some psycho in a pot near to a shelf, and on the shelf, we find another first aid box and a power fist. Hey! That's it for the bottom floor. So heading up the rubble ramp, we can continue by moving to the southwest and going out the western door. We round a corner into another room. Here we find a Nuka-Cola machine with Nuka-Cola inside. On the ground, we find a teddy bear drinking some scotch and enjoying a cigarette. No better way to wait out the apocalypse. And then behind us, we find an Etotronic. I love these little things. I did a video about them that you can watch here if interested. Turning north, we enter an office space, and the floor to this room also is crumbling. Looks like there's a front desk over here to the left. Ah!
For blood!
Oh, right, death claws. We gotta be careful. Okay, careful from now on. We find some buff out on a shelf against the southern wall, but not much else on this reception desk. Then we can inspect each of these cubicles. Nothing in the first one. We find some ammo and caps in the desk of the second one, and nothing in the third one. But in the fourth one, we find 2 ammo canisters. Before dropping down to the lower level, we can skirt across this ledge to the northwest. Here we find some frag grenades and pre-war money in a bin on the ground. With the top explored, we can drop down. Oh, and it goes even further. Looks like this level was the cafeteria level. Here we find a baby carriage. Oh, right, trap. Gosh, I keep forgetting about those. There's a door to the north that leads to a staircase. All right, well, before we go down, let's finish exploring this level. We find 2 vending machines where we can get some Nuka-Cola, one of which is toppled over. 2 Etotronics, one of which is opened, one of which is not. And the one that's not, we find some sugar bombs that we can give to Murphy. The staircase to the south is filled in with rubble. And if we're careful, we can explore the kitchen bar. Might have to hop over it to get back there. Lots of cutlery, some Salisbury steak, and 1 Vault-Tec lunchbox on a shelf. Looks like we've finished with the cafeteria floor. We can head to the staircase to go down to this bottom floor. As we go down, we find a skeleton clutching a bottle of vodka. What people do in their final moments. We arrive in a bit of a utility basement. We see the floor above crumbling into this one. Looks like it would have been a bit of a drop. Turning left, we find some scrap metal. Moving forward, we find a Lone Wanderer motorcycle in the corner. Looks like someone was trying to repair it. Then to the west, we find a bathtub filled with munitions. What every man needs to survive. An assault rifle, some Salisbury steak Instamash, a first aid kit, flamer fuel, and some frag grenades. And the utility basement opens up to another room to the north. And this leads to a cave. Looks like there was some pre-war struggle here. We find sandbag barricades and skeletons draped over them. In the northeastern corner, behind a cinder block barricade, we find 2 ammo canisters. There's a skeleton on the ground near to a frag mine, and we find even more armed frag mines nearby. There's another baby carriage. No, we're good. Wait. Oh, Fox. Just stay behind me, okay? Heading into the supply closet, we find some railway spikes in a bin on the ground, some .32 caliber rounds, and a hunting rifle in a gun cabinet. This leaves 1 path forward, to leap over the rubble in the way of the entrance to the cave. But this small cave actually leads to an unfinished basement. And in the unfinished basement, we find a deathclaw. Looks like it was just 1 for now. Creeping forward, we can hazard a light. Looks like there's lots of scrap and junk to explore. Let's start by going left. Here we find a number of bookshelves covered in stuff. Of note, there's a first aid box, a stack of darts, a plasma grenade hiding in a stew pot, and some .32 caliber ammunition. Then, crossing the room, we find a workstation. There's a weapons workbench here we can use to craft something cool. We can loot a lunchbox and some scotch. We find some ammunition in a box. And that's it for this section. Moving south, we can loot the other side of those bookshelves. Here we find some microfusion cells. And while looting an ammo box...
No more games!
Oh.
Time to die!
Poor old Fox, always taking the first hits. We finish off this shelf by looting a first aid kit. In the middle of this room, we find a tool cabinet next to a gate blocking off a staircase. The gate door is locked with an average lock. If we pick it, we can head downstairs, and we find a barricade. Looks like this is where some people made their last stand. But we don't find any bodies. Oh, there we go. Their bodies are skeletonized, but the ground is still covered with their blood. In the northwestern corner, we find a Nuka-Cola Quantum. They had a ham radio here, but it looks like no one ever responded. We find ammunition on the ground, and then 2 more ammo canisters behind a desk. After looting our first aid box, we can take a closer look at the scene. We don't find any food here, and the cell door was still locked. We walk away with the impression that these 2 people must have committed suicide. One has a revolver, the other an assault rifle. They must have run out of provisions and then ended their lives. How did he know we were down here? Daggone it. Heading upstairs, we can move west. And holy cow, this basement is huge. Looks like it goes on to the north. We'll start by exploring to the southwest. There's a bedroom to the west. On the other side of a bookshelf, we find some .308 caliber rounds, shotgun shells, an ammo canister, and a frag mine. Then next to it, we find some 10mm ammunition and buff out in a bin. That's it for the bedroom. Heading out, we can continue northwest. And here we find a deathclaw nest. We see piles of human gore. I wonder exactly how many ghouls we're exploring here. And we find their deathclaw eggs, but we can't interact with them. Moving north, we find a break area, boxed foods in the fridge, and that's about it, nothing on the counters. Directly across from this, we find a fenced-off workshop. Here we find a bottle cap mine. There's an average locked wall safe inside the workshop desk, within which we find some caps and a stealth boy. We find some generators in the corner of this room, and some .308 caliber rounds stacked near to a sniper rifle hiding behind some pipes. Out of the gated-off area, we can head northeast. We find more scrap on a shelf. Here we find a first aid kit. And here the unfinished basement continues to the east. Looks like whomever built this burrowed right through the rock here. On the other side of the rock hallway, we find another deathclaw. After making quick work of him, we arrive in another large room. We'll explore in a clockwise fashion. There's a 10mm submachine gun and ammo in a gun cabinet to the left, some darts in a box, and beneath the darts, some railway spikes, which took me a while to get. Yeah, there we go. In the northern wall is a staircase leading up. Looks like that's our way out. And as we explore the rest of this basement, we don't find anything. So to continue, we'll head up the northern staircase. At the top of the staircase, we find a door that leads to Old Olney South Wilson Building. What's that? Racing up the stairs and turning left. Whoa! We arrive in one of the most beautifully destroyed interiors I've ever seen in Fallout 3. And we hear the noise of a vertibird. But we don't see a vertibird. But wait, off in the distance, we find Enclave. The Enclave dead, we can start to loot. There are a number of filing cabinets in the rubble. One has some caps and some Nuka-Cola. We see a number of ways to move forward. We'll start by taking this one floor at a time. We're on the first floor. There's a basement floor below us and what appears to be 4 floors above us. Let's start with floor 1. We see a little island floating in the middle here. We find a Deathclaw cage, but it's empty. It's clear that the Enclave are here to try and trap and retrieve as many of these Deathclaws as possible. Looks like we interrupted them in the middle of a job. On this island, we find a skeleton on a toilet. This first floor is so ruined we have to leap from island to island. We see a staircase in the southwestern corner. That'll prove useful for climbing later. But for now, let's continue in a clockwise fashion to try and get to grips with this first floor. But the first floor abruptly ends this way. It's completely collapsed in, and we find a mountain of rubble to the northwest. Though on one little extension, we find a stew pot filled with pulse grenades. The rest, however, is filled in with rubble. So back to the entrance, we'll try going in a counterclockwise fashion. This eastern side of the building is really deteriorated. We have but a lip to stand on. If we squeeze along it though, we eventually get to a larger portion. Here we find a desk with some mentats on top, and we find another floating island jutting out into the middle of the building. Here we find a bin and inside some glue and railway spikes. Back towards the desk, we see a hallway to the east and a rubble ramp going up into the middle of the building to the southwest. Taking the hallway, we find a staircase going down. All right, so that'll take us to the basement. We'll head there next, but first, we can finish exploring this first floor by traveling across some planks into a small room to the north. We can go into what must have been a gift shop or a small commissary. We find a couple of cash registers and the skeleton of a police officer. We can loot his ammunition, and we find a very rare police hat. One of the few police hats we can get in Fallout 3. We can pick the easy locked wall safe. It has one bottle cap inside. And then behind the counter, we find the skeleton of the cashier, covered in bundles of pre-war money. With that, we finish exploring floor 1. Back out into the main room, we can go down the hallway and take the stairs down to the basement level. We find a bit of a janitor station here, scrap against a wall, and a floor cleaning machine behind a counter to the north. Here we find an ammo canister next to the bookshelf, some darts on the bookshelf, a first aid kit, and some railway spikes. With this nook explored, we can go out to the main basement level. We'll go counterclockwise. We pass by a desk and a filing cabinet to find a desk in the northeastern corner. There is a bloody skeleton here, but no loot. Near to this, against the northern wall, we find a Nuka-Cola machine with Nuka-Cola inside. But moving west, we find the northwestern corner completely filled in with rubble. We can't even squeeze back there to loot. So moving southwest, we do find a little nook over here and a baby carriage. Thankfully, this one not booby-trapped, with a teddy bear that we can take back to Marie. There's a skeleton on the floor here, and some psycho in a nearby bin lying on the ground. Moving south, we find a Nuka-Cola on a desk by a pillar, and just south of this, we find human remains beneath a tipped-over filing cabinet. Looks like this fell over during the explosion and crushed this poor soul. This brings us all the way around to the southwestern corner, where we find the bottom of the staircase. We can use this to head up to the first floor and then take it up to the second floor. We'll try going clockwise, but we won't be able to do it for long. In a bin on the ground, we find 2 packets of darts, a Vault-Tec lunchbox on a table, and then a human skeleton with a camera and some jet near to a support pillar. From here, we can leap atop the Deathclaw cage. We see another floating island here, but it's a bit of a jump. We'll find some other way to get there. Back by the camera skeleton, we can loot an easy-locked wall safe in the western wall, and then moving north, we find an Etotronic before turning a corner north. Hugging the western wall while we continue to walk north, we pass by a large billboard that has become part of this rubble ramp, GNR and Galaxy News Radio. This forms a handy path back down to the first floor, and we can use it to leap atop a tiny little island surrounded on all sides by scaffolding. From here, we can leap to another island next to a hanging chain, which connects to a final island on this second floor, where we find another human skeleton and yet another police officer hat. I don't know if this was a police station or if these guys were responding to a call, but it is strange that we find 2 of them here, being such rare items of clothing. On our way back, we notice 2 mini nukes inside this scaffolding cage lying on this floating platform. But how on earth are we gonna get in there? Perhaps if we go up a couple more floors, we can drop down. Back on the GNR billboard, we can continue northwest, but we find a dead end to the west. Instead, we can take a rubble ramp up to the northeast. Here we find a second floor lip that we can skirt across to move west, and at the very end, we find an interesting scene. Looks like a garden gnome and a teddy bear are playing a game of strip poker. The teddy bear is holding some sexy sleepwear. We see some glasses on the ground. The gnome is smoking a cigarette. The teddy bear has a hat lying on top of some empty bottles of booze, and they're both drinking from a bottle of whiskey on a makeshift table made from a wooden crate. For playing cards, they're again using these DC Metro tickets. Not sure how they're gambling with metro tickets, but it looks like the gnome is winning if he's already got the bear down to her skivvies. I hate to mess up the scene, but I had to see if there was anything in the box. But no, nothing in the wooden box. Turning around, we can move northeast, where we find a ledge that leads to a door. This leads to a staircase and is our way out. But before we leave, let's finish exploring this fascinating scene. Hugging the wall of the second floor again, we can move south. Here we find more human remains. And from this lip, we can leap to another floating island on the second floor. This is right next to that scaffolding cage within which we see those two mini nukes. But there's still no way to get there from here. However, on this floating island, we find some flamer fuel in a box. Back to the lip, we can follow it south. We pass by a few more desks and filing cabinets. We find one more ammo canister and a final Nuka-Cola machine before the wall again turns west. And that's it for the second floor. We can use a handy rubble ramp here to climb on up to the third floor. And each floor is worse than the last. Moving east, we can start by going counterclockwise. This floor was an office. We find lots of desks and cubicles here. We can make great use of the Scrounger perk here. Lots of bottle caps in each container and ammunition. We find one ammo canister near to a desk with a dismembered skeleton and blood all over. It was then I tried to find that vertibird we keep hearing, but I couldn't see it. I did, however, see another billboard hanging into the building. Nuka Break. Continuing north, we pass more skeletons. Round a corner to find a bin filled with buff out and blood packs underneath a desk and stim packs on top of it, with an ammo canister next to it. Here we also find an easy-locked wall safe, and nearby, another desk with a wooden crate hiding a scoped .44 Magnum revolver. Moving north through a hole in the wall, we can loot a number of containers. We have to leap on top of this overturned filing cabinet, walk across a desk to get to this other side. Here we find more desks and two Nuka-Cola machines, only one of which we can loot. That brings us to the northern wall. So turning west, ooh, okay, that's a bit of a drop. We can carefully scoot along this ledge. There we go. We find a bit of an island out here, giving us a great view of the destruction. But there's no loot over here. Looks like this lip continues, and if we're careful, okay, we can make it to the other side. Here we find a toy car, a bunch of tin cans, and we meet the western wall. So turning south, we pass by two more bloodied, dismembered skeletons to find a stew pot with some medics inside. Now our path south is blocked by this wall, so to finish exploring this floor, we need to find another way. Retracing our steps, we see a desk about to fall into the pit, but it appears to be just close enough to the other side that we can make a leap. Doing a running jump. And we make it, and we're rewarded with a nuke grenade in a box under a desk, one of the rarest explosives in the entire game. In a bin hiding under a book by this desk, we find some Rataway and scotch. Moving south, we pass a skeleton, but there's nothing else here. So turning north, we can edge across this lip to find another Nuka-Cola machine with more Nuka-Cola. It was about this time that I was getting really annoyed by that doggone vertibird, and from this angle, I finally got a pretty good glimpse of it. Taking out the Gauss rifle, we can take aim. Nothing happens. Try it again. Ooh, and it's on fire a couple more times. Whoa! It tried to take off, but before it could, it exploded. And the wreckage rains down on us. Ah, peace and quiet. Now, we see another floor above us. Let's see if we can get up there from on top of this desk. No, that gap is just too small. But from this floor, we can leap down into the scaffolding cage. This lip goes right over it. Oh no, but where did the mini-nukes go? Oh, the explosion of the vertibird must have cast them flying around the building. Leaping down to the basement level, we can try to... Oh, there's one. Okay, one down. The other one's got to be here close by. Well, the good news is that we could have gotten them by jumping down from that top floor into the scaffolding cage, or by exploding the vertibird and just hunting for them in the rubble. Ah, there it is. Now, there is that final floor above us that was driving me crazy. It looks like we could almost get up there, but no matter what I tried, I could not get up there. Finally, I resorted to toggling clipping and floating up there just to see what was up there, and there's nothing there. This is an unfinished floor, no decorations, no junk. Looks like we were never intended to be able to get up there. But that's good news. It means we're not missing anything. With this ruined building fully explored, we can head back down to the second floor, go out the northern doorway, and take a staircase down to open a door to the Olney Powerworks. On the other side, we can open a door to the left, where we find a bathroom, not much here. Then, heading up the stairs, we see a path to the southeast and a door to the west. Opening the door to the west leads to a very hard locked terminal. A terminal which can be used to open a security door we otherwise can't open. After hacking the terminal, we open the door to arrive in a coffee room. There's a couch and a TV in a corner, and this break room opens up to the south to a room filled with arcs of energy. This must be the Tesla coil we were sent to retrieve. But you know what? I feel like we just took a shortcut. To get a full picture for this place, let's retrace our steps and go through a door to the south. Here, we find a room patrolled by sentry bots. When the sentry bots are dead, we can access an automated control terminal to the right, locked with a hard lock. After hacking it, Olney Powerworks, a division of PPE. Welcome, user. We can shut down the automated process or check the load control manifest, checking the manifest first. PPE 4631 BMO Warehouse 663 Load Class A. Supervisor J. Yakman. Contents, and we see a number of serial numbers, unit numbers, and shipment logs. No idea what they were creating here. Backing out, we can shut down the automated process, initiating worker shutdown protocol. Alright, so it looks like this is a way to deactivate the sentry bots, aside from destroying them. Moving east, we find an office cubicle room to the left. Here we find a first aid kit, and some jet in a bin next to one office desk, but not much else here. Heading out, we can take a staircase down to the factory floor. We find a shelf against the stairs. In one of the boxes, we can knock out a telephone to find some right-of-way. We see a storage room to the north, but it's blocked off by a fence. The machines in this room are issuing a thick black smoke, but with nothing else to interact with, we can go through a door to the east. We find a janitor closet with caps in a locker, and then after looting more caps from some filing cabinets in the hallway, we can turn south to arrive on the bottom level of another factory. There's a work shelf to the east, where we can loot a first aid kit, and then turning around we find two bookshelves by some large vats. Here we can loot some darts, and if we tip over a stew pot, we find some shotgun shells. There are two more bookshelves near to a staircase in the middle of the room. In one stew pot, we find some cherry bombs, and there's a lunchbox at the top of the bookshelf. With this bottom level explored, we can head up a staircase. We find more black smoke spewing into this room. At the top, we find more cubicles. In one, someone was bored at work. We see cutouts and drawings from his kids on the wall. Looks like he was stacking cards when the bombs dropped. And he's got an 8-ball balanced on top of the card deck. Wow. It's a strong card deck, and it looks like the cards are actually Metro tickets. If we even barely touch it. Oh, what a shame. Nearby we find some Radex, and the other cubicle is empty. Moving to the other side of the cubicle, we see an opened security door. I don't remember opening this. Looks like that's the way we need to go. But we missed a supply closet by the cubicles, so retracing our steps, we can head inside. Here all we find is a first aid kit. So back to the security door. We can hack a hard-locked automated control terminal. If we do, we find an option to vent radiation. Please stand by. Then we can shut down the automated process, initiating worker shutdown protocol. Then heading through the door. All right. Looks like things are safe. Sure enough, we find some radiation emitters lining the wall here. Looks like these are what we deactivated from the terminal. On the ground, we find a human corpse with glowing fungus growing from his bones. Turning west, a sentry bot.
I only killed to know I'm alive! Your time is up!
Passing by more human bones on the ground, we can go through a door to find another sentry bot, but this one appears to be deactivated. The terminal on the wall behind us has the same entries as the last one. We see electricity arcing between two vats, one below, one above, in 4 different chambers, but we can't interact with any of this. To the south, we find a console and a doorway filled in with rubble, which leads to a secret bathroom. Inside the secret bathroom, we can loot a frag grenade on a sink, some scotch in a box, and we find a poker game going on between a teddy bear and a garden gnome. And they're using miniaturized bottles as chess pieces. These bottles are smaller than other bottles, making them rare collectibles. And look at that, the garden gnome is smoking. It even has a lit cigarette. Well, I hate to mess this up, but little Marie needs the bear. After looting some pulse grenades on a shelf above the toilets, we can head out, follow the catwalk north, then west, to arrive at another security door. This terminal is locked with a hard lock. After hacking it, we arrive in, what is this, a server room? Looks like we can go north or south. If we try going north first... Doors slide open behind us. Oh, we got ambushed by turrets, and the door to the left is locked again. Oh man, after taking out the turrets, we can explore this little nook. We see something weird. There's a miniaturized playground toy on a pedestal. We've seen these all over the Capital Wasteland, always in playgrounds, but these are really small. We can hold them in our hands, and they're on top pedestals with arrows pointing up. Looking up, we find an ammunition box hiding on a girder. Inside, we find alien power cells. And in the other, we find more alien power cells. Well, now the playground equipment makes sense. It was a small spaceship toy from a playground, telling us that there was alien technology nearby. I'm not even going to try to explain the lore reasons for this. Turning around, we can head north. We see a door to the right, and at the end of the hallway, an emergency electrical switch. If we try to flip the emergency electrical switch, nothing happens. So instead, opening the door, we arrive back in that room where we saw the arcs of electricity. So it really was a shortcut. Creeping inside, whoa, what is this? There is something on a pedestal in the middle of this machine. Looks like that's what we need to get. But before jumping down, we can explore this top area. In a room to the right, we see a number of ruined computers and all sorts of technology. There are 2 first aid kits on a nearby shelf, a pulse mine hiding beneath some pool balls at the bottom of the shelf, and an ammo canister. We then find some glowing... what is that? Some sparkling metal, maybe small models of the Tesla coil in the middle of the machine. Heading out and continuing around on this level, we find a bunch of scrap on a shelf where we find a small stack of BBs, and next to this another shelf with some mentats and a box with some jet inside. Opening a door to the north, we see a staircase going down and a ladder going up. Looks like that's it. Now to get the Tesla coil. We could go down those stairs, but heck, I want to see what happens if you jump inside. Jumping down, we find the Tesla coil, and if we take it... oh! And it almost kills us. Alternatively, we could have activated the 3 emergency switches we find on the wall in this chamber. These still give us a shock, but not as much as taking the coil outright. When done, we can open a door to the west. This leads down a hallway to a room with a bunch of computers. In this room, we find more alien power cells, some on a table, and then some lying on a stove. Here we also find a pulse mine in a cooking pan. Then turning around, we find more alien power cells on a second table. There is one terminal here, the remote access research terminal, locked with a hard lock. After hacking it, we find one option: trigger the machine failsafe. Powering down. Oh, so this was another way to do it without sustaining any damage. We could have turned the thing off by hacking this terminal. Oh well, at least we got there in the end. On our way out, we see a gnome hiding in the corner. There's some buff out in a bin next to him, and some mentats on a box near the door. After looting a first aid kit on a wall, we can open the door. Going down a pipelined hallway, we can turn right to go up a staircase to finally arrive at the emergency exit. Heading up the ladder, we arrive on the street right outside Old Olney. Taking a look at our inventory, we've got the Tesla coil. Now we can head back to Paladin Tristan at the Citadel to find out exactly what he needed it for. We'll pick up right here where we leave off in my next episode. I publish many Fallout videos each and every week, so if you don't want to miss it, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. If you have and you feel like you're still missing out on YouTube notifications, consider following me on Twitter at Oxhorn. I update Twitter manually with every new piece of content that I publish. I've got a shirt shop with completely unique designs that you can't find anywhere else. My designs come on shirts in a variety of men's, women's, and children's sizes, and in a wide array of colors. You can find them on other products as well, like smartphone cases, pillows, posters, mugs, stickers, prints, etc. So if interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you can click here. If you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming a patron on Patreon or a member here on YouTube. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with more brand new videos.